We're alive.
Good evening, everybody. Today is February 14th, our full council meeting. And if you will, help me get started as we usually do with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Lancer, would you do roll?
Mr. Blanchard? Present. Ms. Chaney?
Present.
Mr. Fisher? Present. Mr. Knapp? Here. Ms. Snyder?
Present.
Mr. Van Horn? Here. All members are present.
Thank you. I am aware from our solicitor, Mr. Donellan, that there's a couple amendments he'd like to make to the agenda. Is there any others? If not, I'll have Mr. Donellan.
Yeah, there's two pieces of legislation relative to the purchase of property on Weeby Road from Shepherd Real Estate. I'm expecting Mr. Bean to come in here any minute and sign the contract. And so that would authorize the contract on behalf of the village. And the second piece of legislation is to authorize a joint agreement with Hamilton County for a revitalization grant to fund that purchase. So when we get to that point on the agenda, I'll read both of those for approval.
Is there a motion to amend the agenda as stated by Mr. Donellan?
So moved.
All those in favor of amending, and I should say, was there a motion to amend and accept?
Yes.
Was there a second for that?
Second.
All those in favor of amending and accepting the agenda?
Aye.
Thank you. I do not see that we have anyone registered to speak to council. Is there any information I'm not aware of concerning that? All right. And the minutes to be approved, I'm presuming everyone's had an opportunity to take a look at them. Do I have a motion to accept or amend and accept the minutes from the 24th of January?
Motion to accept?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Just a quick note that in the minutes that'll be on the website, and then the hard copy will include Ms. Cheney's report from the last meeting in written form.
I thought it was blue.
You're fine.
Okay, my understanding is that we probably will not have a fire chief reporting this evening.
That's correct.
That is correct. And so I'll just go into my report. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. In the interest of getting everyone home in time for the opportunity to celebrate love as they choose, I'll forego a lengthy explanation of the complicated history of Valentine's Day tonight and just say that it's certainly a celebration of love. And so with that in mind, I have a gift, just being of service. If you forgot to give your love a gift or want to add to what you did, or in case you're alone tonight and if you just want a little love from me, I've got a gift for each of you. There's some in the back for everyone there. Ms. Cheney,
Aw, thank you.
Ms. Snyder.
Oh, thank you. Ladies first.
There you go.
Thank you. Yeah.
Santa Claus.
Right.
It's not a mayor or a bride.
I don't know.
I just take the check.
That's really cool. Someone did some research.
And you guys get chocolate flowers.
Cool.
Ooh,
Thank you.
that's so big.
Look at that.
You want for your wife?
Oh, it's all in the car. I was doing last minute shopping tonight because that's the way I do things. Concerning the Super Bowl, our Cincinnati Bengals excited and brought the region together in a way I haven't seen before, even compared back in the 80s. I was 19 the last time that they were in the Super Bowl. I said to some friends earlier today that I don't like teaching my kids about losing, mostly because I don't like losing, and so find it harder to do when feeling lost. Thankfully, there are good examples that others provide that I can copy. And today I'm wearing my jersey as a symbol of continuing to love even in loss. and also because I'm too depressed to change my clothes from yesterday. So on behalf of the village of Gulf Manor, thank you to the Cincinnati Bengals for such an exciting run. We all look forward to the excitement in store for next year. I met with Chief Campbell last week to discuss potential format and content changes of the police activity report and the mayor's court report. Moving forward, I or Chief will keep you posted on our continued progress on that. If you have any suggestions for things you'd like to have in the report, let me know. I think what the Chief's working on is going to be really good. 2 weeks ago, I appointed Lou Marks as our representative to the Deer Park Silverton Joint Fire District interview panel. This panel was put together by Chief Meter. It consists of one resident from each community to be involved in the interview process of firefighters for new hires. I agree with Chief Meter that this is a great opportunity to start building relationships between our new fire district and the village of Gulf Manor, are coming to be new. On behalf of the village, I thank Chief Meter and our new fire district for putting this together. As many of you know, Mr. Marks has been a valuable asset to our community and to this council, bringing his experience as a long-term resident and with the volunteer firefighters in the village. As you may recall, I appointed one of our residents, Jason Snyder, to the executive committee last month. He had to step down given a schedule conflict with one of his other community service commitments. But I'm happy to announce that Mr. Snyder is available to take a seat on the Planning Commission should council give the blessing. This leaves a seat open on the Executive Committee, which Mr. Marks has agreed to fill. Mr. Marks has experience on the Executive Committee as a former elected official. So on behalf of the village, I want to thank Mr. Marks once again for his service to the community. Thank Mr. Snyder as well for his willingness to serve. As a reminder, if you're a resident of Gulf Manor and you are available to serve your community, you'll get our most gracious thanks, and we can certainly find things for you to do. We have an application form that you can download from our website. It's on the government tab, the drop-down menu item that says appointment to boards and committee requests. I'm doing all this without my glasses, guys. I'm impressed. Mr. Hirth, Mr. Lanzer, and I attended the inaugural Transit Infrastructure Fund signing ceremony last week and got some swag. The meeting was attended by a number of state and county elected officials. Commissioner Denise Driehaus was there, Ohio State Representatives Bill Seitz, apologies, former Mayor Cranley, and Senator Brown made an appearance via Zoom video. I got a fancy pen out of it. Luminous. And we got this fancy plate for display, which I'll leave up to Mr. Hirth.
We get a bigger ashtray than I did.
Joking aside, it did give us an opportunity to talk to and get contact information for several folks that can help us identify funding for additional projects like getting several bus stop shelters in the village. Finally, this month is Black History Month, which is officially recognized in the United States, Canada, the UK, Ireland, and the Netherlands. As I like to do each year, I'm going to read a little bit about the history of Black History Month and why it's significant that it's observed. Black History Month originated in the United States, where it's also known as African American History Month. The precursor of Black History Month was Black History Week, which was first celebrated in 1926 as an educational endeavor of American scholar Dr. Carter Woodson, 1875 to 1950. The specific calendar week was chosen because it coincides with the birth dates of both Abraham Lincoln, which was February 12th, and Frederick Douglass, February 14th today. These gentlemen's birth dates have been celebrated together by American Black communities since the late 19th century in recognition of the significant impact these two individuals had on Black American life. Dr. Woodson pushed to bring Black history into public consciousness, noticing that the role of African Americans in American history was either misrepresented or missing altogether from history books of his time. Black history was largely ignored by historians and the general public until the 20th century. Dr. Woodson is attributed as a significant force in changing all that through the coordination of teaching the history of Black Americans in the nation's public schools. Much of the history of Black people wasn't known by Blacks or whites until Black history was taught in school. The research and dissemination of Black history has countered myths that slaves were well treated under slavery or that Blacks had been better off under slavery. It also, by lifting examples of extraordinary individuals, provided examples of Americans for children to look up to, emulate, and have pride in. Black History Week grew in popularity over the following decades, with mayors across the United States endorsing it as a holiday. Black History Month was first proposed by Black history educators in our very own Kent State University here in Ohio, and officially became recognized by President Ford during the celebration of the United States bicentennial in 1976. Black History Month has helped the growing cultural identity among the Black community. Its significance to all Americans cannot be overstated. We cannot make America great while blind to one another or our history, and without examples of greatness from the full spectrum of our citizenry. All these things are part of the shared history of the United States. I've identified several resource links and encourage everyone to learn more about Black history in the United States. There's a great deal more each of us can personally learn about the history of Black Americans. If you know of other resources, let me know, and I'll see if I can put them on my list. What I have identified so far is one from resources for the Center for Racial Justice and Education, another link to the resources from the U.S. Library of Congress, and there's resources from the African American History Month government website, and then resources from the National Education Association. I have links to each one of those for those that are interested, and that is the end of my report. Mr. Hirth.
Thank you. Records Commission convened an organization meeting this evening where we adopted the RC2 recommendations from the state of Ohio for our records retention. That is a comprehensive document that we will pare down, which will make it Gulf Manor sized in the future, but it makes us compliant. Mr. Donovan's going to speak a little bit more about this topic when we get to his report this evening. Reminder that the Financial Audit Committee will convene a meeting on February 28th, which is the next council meeting at 5:30 p.m. Glad to report that Mr. Lanzer has completed the financial books for 2022, and the final report is actually out on our website under 2021 financials. If you get a chance to go out there and take a look, but he'll be doing a full-blown report on that during the finance meeting at the next council meeting. The Board of Tax Review, just a reminder, we still need to appoint members to this board. In the previous minutes, all of the requirements of those possible candidates are listed there. We effectively completed elected official training Tuesday through Friday last week, and I think everybody seemed to do well on that who was there. So we appreciate your attendance. Fire and EMS services transition continues. No problems at this point. We're still on track for Deer Park Silverton taking over at 6 a.m. on Tuesday, March 1st. And I believe we have or will have a call, transition call this week on Thursday. We're still working towards, we had set the date of February 24th for the town hall meeting. I'm going to recommend that we move that back into March, since we're doing the strategic planning meeting next Tuesday, the 22nd. But I did send out a template of the presentation that was done for the initial fire merger to the mayor, Ms. Snyder, and Mr. Lanzer, so we can start looking at content for what that meeting might look like. The Station 47 Honors Celebration, which is the new name for that event. If you can save the date for Saturday, April 2nd, Mr. Putoff and Mr. Marks are working on an agenda and a program for that. Ms. Cheney is also helping that committee, and we'll get back to you if there's anything additional that we need from council members. The strategic plan meeting, as I mentioned, is on Tuesday, and this is listed, actually I've got this wrong here. It's at 6:30 p.m. Dinner will be provided. Project update, nothing new on Vera. Nothing new on WeHe except engineering continues, as well as the Elbrook South project at Englewood Canterbury. Wanted to point out that council this evening that the bid process for all three of these projects will happen sometime this spring. So sometime between now and the end of April. These are going to be big projects on the scale as what we completed on Stover Avenue, which we're finishing up this spring, and also what we did on, completed on Stover, and then what we're currently doing on Vera Short Elbrook and Short Fair Oaks, which will be completed in the spring. Initially, again, Greater Cincinnati Waterworks will install new water lines. Afterwards, the village will replace through a hired contractor existing curbs, driveway aprons, new asphalt street surface, and install new or replacing existing speed control devices, speed humps. Here's what's really important about this, and I think we can all feel good about this. These projects are the largest undertaking of street improvements that we will have completed to date, representing over $2 million in investment in the village infrastructure. That is just amazing, considering our budget is 2.6, I believe. Pretty darn good. How did we pay for that? Road improvement projects are funded through various sources, including monies from the village dedicated road levy, available road improvement grants, and interest-free loans available from Hamilton County and the state of Ohio, as well as monies recently received from SORTA's transit fund levy that voters passed in 2020, which speaks to they were mentioning that there was a signing ceremony on Thursday of this past week to celebrate all of the money that was passed out, and that fund will be available to us again in the next fiscal year based on the money that it's collecting. Here's the next important thing to think about. After those projects are completed, we will have completed nearly 2/3 of the streets in the village in renovation in the last 5 years. That's huge, considering where we were 5 or 6 years ago. More information will be provided to residents, if you're watching out there, on these streets as we get closer to the bid process. We normally don't officially announce timing on a project until contracts are actually signed and we know who's doing the work. This work, and I don't have to remind anybody here, but I'll say this, it's extremely important to preserve the livability of the village, to ensure safe and unhampered travel throughout the village for our residents and first responders, and to continue to enhance our property values. So I think this program is something that this council, the previous council, and all of us as residents can be proud of in terms of reinvesting into our village. I sent everybody an email earlier in the last week. This is only Monday. Demolition of the current structure in the playground should start this week, weather pending. I'm not sure about that because when I saw the weather report this evening, it looks like heavy rain Wednesday and Thursday. But demolition is going to happen sometime in February. When that happens, they are going to then set a construction schedule, and we are going to close and secure the park when the demolition starts throughout the remainder of the project. Chief Campbell and I had an extensive conversation last week about the security of the materials, because those are all going to have to be moved out of storage over into the park. So we want to make sure that they are safe. And also we want to be concerned about the safety of people who will be over there where there's holes in the ground. So we'll keep the public apprised of when that's going to happen through various social media sources. One other thing I wanted to put on council's radar is that we are in the midst of looking at replacing the 2008 service department pickup truck. It looks like the cost of that is going to be about $52,000. It needs to be ordered. It's about a 6 to 8 month period to get it in once it's ordered. And Mr. Lanzer is currently working on financing for that. So we'll probably bring that to council at the next council meeting as a package.
Which one is that? Is it?
It's the F-250.
Okay, that's what. Yeah.
That truck has served us well, but when you open the door, you know it needs help. So the other thing I wanted just to mention is that economic development continues to be the way we breathe, sleep, eat, drink these days. This is an important process to us, and I'm really looking forward to digging into this deeply with the engagement committee and with the other committees as we move forward on this project. Mr. Lanzer, starting at the next council meeting, is going to start giving I don't know if it'll be every council meeting or at least monthly, but an update on where we are with economic development issues. And Mr. Donlin this evening is going to have a huge win in that column for us this evening. And that would be the end of my report unless there are questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hurth. Mr. Lanzer. any report?
Yeah, as Ron mentioned, last week I completed the year end for fiscal year 2021, and those materials are available on the website for review. So I welcome all council members and the general public, get on the website and take a look at the financial health of the village. The village is financially strong as it has been in the last several years. I'll have a full report on that at the next finance meeting and the next council meeting. In addition, I finished the January 2022 bank reconciliation. I'm currently working on updating the packet, the monthly financial packet that we make public. New year, new numbers, new charts, all of that has to be made, and that's what I've been working on here lately. But that will be ready to go at the next finance meeting as well. Non-finance related, I want to take a moment and thank the service department for their work at the last ice storm. They worked 30 straight hours, pretty much nonstop. That total 120 person hours, because there are 4 people here working at all times during that 30 hours. And I think that they did an outstanding job, especially given the conditions of the roads. So the service departments, Joe Farthing, Jason Kurth, Aidan Matala was there, Andy McGinnis was there, and Brian Timmers was there. And they did an outstanding job. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, Mr. Lanzer.
I've been smelling it too.
Okay, yeah, we're checking to see if we're safe. A couple folks are smelling something like either exhaust or gas or I'm coughing a little bit.
Jill's truck department.
I think
She's
that's
here.
what it is. It's diesel.
She has a diesel truck, but she has to keep heated up.
Okay, unless there's, well, yeah, wait a moment.
I had emailed it.
It's a gas.
It's diesel. Just text me, that'd be great.
Unless there's an objection, I'm gonna ask if Mr. Van Harn, if you can go ahead and give your executive committee report while we wait for Chief Campbell to return.
Sure. Executive committee met tonight, and we both of the meeting was spent kind of continuing discussion of the priorities for the executive committee this year. We decided that we're going to have a little bit of a shift in the way we're going to try to approach things. In the spirit of what Mr. Hurst said of trying to move economic development and strategic planning to the forefront of our village's efforts. We, at this point, are going to work on push the landlord-tenant discussion to the forefront of our agenda to try to get that accomplished. But there's many other things that I got responses on for things they'd like executive committee to take on, such as things like the splash pad, dog park, some beautification issues, other things that really need attention. So we're going to try to, we're inviting people and we're going to create some subcommittees of at least 2 people, can be a council member and a resident or whatever, and try to kind of vet and work on some of these things and come up with something, work with Ron, that eventually will come up to the executive committee for hopefully a quick review, maybe last tweaking, and then again presented to council to get approval that way. Kind of the background of that was when I sat down and said, what I'm going to do this year for executive committee, I realized that we have 9 hours now as a committee to meet the rest of the year. And I go, how are we ever going to get decisions on all this made? And it was actually, I said in the meeting, it was kind of affirming and surprised that the idea was brought up in the new electee training that we watched, where some municipalities work that way, where they have the subcommittees that do things outside, but of course it's all brought to the public's attention to get things done. So we're going to try to shift that. Again, it's going to be mostly volunteer stuff. We're not going to assign things. We're looking for people that are interested in certain things they're interested in, whether it be the park, whether it be community engagement or whatever that they're going to do. Me personally, I've already invested in the one of the things that was on our agenda, which was the pods, dumpsters and things. I've already done some work, so I'm going to be asking for someone else to work with me on that, and we'll try to put something together, working with Ron, to finally bring to the committee. We'll put it on the agenda, and hopefully then from there it'll be a fairly short path to approval. So that was our main discussion. Let's see, was there anything else here? I think that was pretty much it, the bulk of the meeting. So we have kind of a direction now set for the year, and I think a process that we're going to try to shift and how we're going to be functioning this year.
Any questions, Mr. Van Harn? All right. Chief Campbell.
Yeah, as the mayor mentioned, he and I met to discuss some detail that could be presented to council. So I'm excited to be able to do that going forward. Next meeting, we'll have a lot more in the activity report for you guys. And in the meantime, if there's anything you're curious about or want information on, let me know. And we can work with Denise to see if we can get that information available to share with all of you. As for the mayor's court report for the month of January, I have that here. Total to the village is $5,050. Total to the state is $1,300.50. The $79.50 other line is there for a total of $6,430. That is the end of the mayor's court report.
Motion to accept the mayor's court report.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Second item, and I spoke with Andy and Ron about this last week, and I just opened this today. We received reimbursement from the state of Ohio for training. There's certain mandated trainings they want every police department in Ohio to take part in, and as part of that being mandated, they will reimburse us for some of this training, so we don't have to stop other areas of training that we currently do. So we received a check for $4,227.96. That's a really good amount, more than we received in the past when we had CPT training. So that'll help us a lot through the year. They'll send out reporting parameters on how this is going to be recorded. But since this program is so new, they sent the check first and then told us how we'll keep track of it later. So I'll get that.
That's a nice change.
I'll get that to you. We'll work with that. And then lastly, something to put on the radar is we are looking to source redaction software to go with the video, the body cams, and the cruiser cams we have. We're going to source it more than likely through the vendor that we got the cameras from. It looks like it's going to be in the area of about $8,000. But it's something that's necessary when we start getting more increased requests for videos, that we can obscure faces of uninvolved parties, things that don't pertain to the topic of the video. So as we get closer to that, I'll work with Andy and Ron and the Finance Committee and bring that here. That is all I have, unless there's any questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Chief.
Is there anything on the LPRs, license plate readers?
We have a site survey that's going to be conducted when they notify us that somebody's available. But I don't have a date for that yet.
Okay, thank you.
I see that I believe the final LMFR Fire Board meeting is February 26th in Fairfax. Is there any other report on fire district stuff?
No, that's the last meeting in which Gulf Manor will be a participant of the Little Miami Fire Board. will be Wednesday at Fairfax.
Mr. Betcher, any planning commission?
Yeah, Planning Commission met last Monday at length. We did not hear any variance requests, but there is one scheduled for March, which will be March 7th, 2022 at 6:30. Planning Commission discussed some issues with overlap or not overlap of zoning certificates versus variances. So when people do roofs versus when people do additions, where the county gets involved, where we get involved. So that's continued discussion. Mr. Putoff has been very helpful in reaching out to some resources within the county for that. And then discussion about continuing to, evolve with the fence guidelines. So a lot of the variances that we do here are regarding fences. So making them, more potable for the community to kind of save time for everybody involved. That if we're just going to approve 6-foot fences in between houses for everybody, why not make that the fence code? So nothing set in stone, but just discussions going forward. So again, next meeting is March 7th. End of report.
Thank you, Mr. Betcher.
What we need
Council-
from council, because this
council
will be
needs to
amending our zoning
step
code,
up.
it's just a
Council needs
motion
confirm
to allow us to go forward and study that.
Planning Commission.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
An amendment, we're gonna do, to amend the zoning code, either a property owner initiates it or planning commission initiates it, comes back to council and council says, take it down there. That's what we're doing, is council saying, yes, we'd like you to update those sections of the code relative to fences. And the other is to bring some of our code into compliance where we regulate concrete work in the right of way, but we're not properly able to regulate concrete work on driveways. And so what we're trying to do is close that gap so residents are not taken advantage of, that they're getting the appropriate strength and depth on concrete in their driveways. We're not going to step in and regulate the sidewalk that goes from your driveway to your front porch, because some people want gravel, some people want stone, some people want concrete, but we do regulate steps, and we want to make sure that we're picking up all those gaps so no one is performing work without us being able to inspect it.
It's just to allow it to discuss it.
Right, that's the process to amend the zoning code, is council says, motion, planning commission, study that and bring it back to us.
And I apologize for misspeaking. There's supposed to be discussion before I say all in favor. That was significant error on my part. I apologize.
So who hit the motion?
I think I moved and Danny seconded it.
Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And we need, as I mentioned in my report, that Mr. Jason Snyder has agreed, should the council give the blessing, to take a seat on the planning commission. We need to have that affirmed, I'm told,
Yes.
by council. So I would ask for a motion for that.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Very good. Without objection, I take that as unanimous. And apologize. I see that the Finance Committee didn't meet this evening. Next meeting is when, Mr. Betcher? Do you know?
February 28th at 6 p.m.
Very good. And
Are you skipping me again?
I have not actually officially engaged to that committee yet, so I please don't take it personally.
I am.
Ms. Cheney, would you like to speak on community engagement?
I've done a lot of work on this committee and education. Okay, so I didn't get to give the report last month. So it's going to be attached so you all can read it there. But one of the things that did happen, I would like to comment on here because it relates to Gulf Manor. At the LSDMC meeting, Gulf Manor Police Department was thanked for the Shop with a Cop event. This time, 8 PRM students attended. Normally, PRM can send 12 students, but Gulf Manor Police Department wanted to be fair and include other area elementary schools with Gulf Manor children. The students had an amazing time and are very grateful and thankful for everything that day. So I wanted to personally thank the police department too for all that. And then, you want me to continue?
This is education report?
Yeah,
Yes, very good. I was not skipping education. I was skipping community engagement. I
I know, but it's down under there now, so it's
It's
confusing.
listed that way
Exactly.
because they, yes.
Right, it's okay. Okay, so we met again
Embarrassed.
on February 9th. Monique Johnson, she's our school's resource coordinator. She works for the school's lead agency, which is the YMCA. And they pay her salary. I don't know if all of you are aware of that. I mentioned it a long time ago, but we have some new people now. Each school has a lead agency that helps them out, and they do after-school programs mostly and help out and other programs within the school. So the YMCA the lead agency pays for the resource coordinator, comes out of their budget. So the YMCA pays for PRM's resource. Sixth graders, they teach the kids how to be at home safely till parents get home. And then better babysitting class, it's for the fifth and sixth graders too. And they teach you how to babysit, what you need to do. There is a charge for these classes, these two, $60 for the home alone class and $90 for the babysitting class. But they will work with PRM on pricing issues, and they do have some grant money they can help out. And then they have other classes which are sewing and pottery too. But anyway, our enrollment is stable right now at 721. We have 379 boys, 342 girls. And I looked at the CPS site today, and preschool registration is happening now. You register in person or on the CPS site, and the child must be 3 years old. And then also on the site, I saw where, the superintendent finalists, I don't know if you've heard, there's 3 of them now. And they were all interviewed by parents and students just this February 9th. Nothing's been announced yet, but there's 3 of them. And the one is the current interim superintendent, Tanaya Amat, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Marlon Stiles, he's the superintendent of Middletown City School District, and Ira Netta, right? She's the deputy superintendent of schools in Detroit. So one of those probably will be chosen pretty soon. And then I also noticed that there's a new Marion Spencer Scholar Award. It's the first year for it. And this has been paid for this year by the alumni and also University of Cincinnati. And what it is, it's 10 CPS students are chosen to receive the Marion Spencer Scholarship to University of Cincinnati. The scholarship will cover their full tuition, their room and board, and a service trip to Tanzania. I hope I got that right.
Tanzania.
Thank you. And other enrichment opportunities. The students were chosen based on how well they embodied Marion Spencer and her legacy of service to the Cincinnati community. Do you know who Marion Spencer is?
Yeah.
She was big in the 50s of getting African Americans into Coney Island. That was one of the big projects that she did. And then also she was the first African American Cincinnati council member. Woman. Sorry. That's right, because Ted Berry. Sorry. And then what I couldn't find out, because I didn't take the time to listen to all the kids that won videos, whether any of our Golf Manor kids. But I can tell you that Schroeder High School was chosen, Clark Montessori, Spencer City for gifted and exceptional students, Aiken High School, and Gilbert Data High School. This one caught my eye because the name is Muslim and I can never pronounce that last name. But his little bio says that he came here from Iraq, him and his family, and he came to Ohio in 2016. So apparently he's done a really good job while he's here in this short time. One of the things it looks like, it's based on academic, and it's also based on what work the kids do and how involved they are in the community. Western Hills High School is another one, Walnut Hills School for Creative and Performing Arts, Euler School, and then the Hughes STEM High School. And it's out there if you want to go look at all that information. And then I got involved, they drugged me into another committee. The PRN pedestrian and traffic safety meeting, they've had so many problems up there on Langdon Farm Road and on Montgomery Road. A staff member was hit by a car on Montgomery Road a while back. And then another parent and child almost got hit recently, and she's the one that's leading this solution to try and figure out what can be done. So it's a brand new committee. It just started. If anyone wants to get involved in it, you're welcome. But they're looking at how they can slow down the speed limit. And what we have noticed, or what they've noticed, is that there aren't any school signs close to Montgomery Road to the school that says that there's school ahead. And there's none on Langdon Farm Road that tells you that there's a school that you're approaching a school. So they're looking at that, and then they talked about the school sign flashing. They wanted to know if they could just leave it on flashing all day long, if that would help, because it doesn't flash all day long. And they're looking at maybe a pedestrian scramble, and I learned a little bit more about that sidewalk. What they're looking at is on Montgomery Road at Leicester Road, it would be three-way, like a three-way stop. So everybody on Montgomery Road, both ways, would stop at the same time. And then everybody on Leicester Road would stop at the same time. And then they would all go at the same time. And then the third one would be all pedestrians cross at the same time when Leicester Road and Montgomery all sit. They also looked at some speed bumps, and I did talk briefly with our chief about his feeling. He thought the speed bumps might be a good thing to have, or a possibility that they could use. But anyway, I suggested to them, I think I was invited because they would love to have Gulf Manor involved, because Gulf Manor Police Department has offered to help out up there, but District 2 has turned us down because it's out of our jurisdiction. So that was the main reason I think I was invited to join, to see if we could figure out a way to get Gulf Manor to be able to serve up there a little bit, or at least serve on Langdon Farm Road, but I don't think that's going to happen. I suggested that they contact District 2. You've got to contact District 2, and you've got to get them together and talk with Pleasant Ridge Community Council. There's subdivisions of the Community Council, which I didn't know. One of them is Pleasant Streets. You've probably heard of it. And so they're going to be greatly involved in getting this done too. Be Pleasant Streets and the school working together, and hopefully District 2. So that's all I have. Sorry I took up so much time. There's so much going on there.
Excellent work as usual, Ms. Cheney. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm excited about your information about Angie taking on more of a management role
I am too.
there. For those who don't know, I believe it was her. So myself and Ms. Cheney and oh gosh, why am I drawing the blank?
When we went up there?
Yeah.
Peg Conway?
Peg Conway from Marymount.
No, she was from Amberley.
Amberley. Why am I
Yeah.
saying Marymount?
Yeah, and then Muthing,
Yes. When
Mayor Muthing?
Yes, when we,
Okay.
so we got invited to do a walkthrough over at a PRM. It was before COVID, so it's been several years now, but got to see the role of the person who's helping us, the resource coordinator and all that there. So it was a great opportunity for us to get down there and see the workings there and to meet Angie. So it's a great, looking forward to that. Had a question about the babysitter training, as well as the home alone training.
Mhm.
I'm presuming that's available to anybody, even if they're not students at PRM or not? Okay, if you can let us know. And when you find out, the thing about the scholarships, I've tried to, when you've made me aware of those, I've tried to make sure that we get those up on the website. I'm thinking if there's not an objection, that would be a great thing to have. We have a place designated on our website that talks about the schools and stuff in the area, or at least we have in the past. Do we still have?
There's a school page, but if somebody's looking for something that's happening now, I would put it on the blog.
Right. There's certain certain scholarship opportunities that are available every year on a, but you have to apply for them. And I was thinking that we might, not giving you any workload to do right now, but maybe it's something that Sharon and I can look into, and it might be a good, like, little, just something that can constantly be on that page for parents of kids that, are going to be moving on and eventually going to college in the area of knowing what kind of scholarships are available. I think that'd be a great service. We can certainly put it on the blog too as we're moving forward. Thanks
You mean the
again.
Marion Spencer one?
Yeah,
That was a good one.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
including that one. I know that there are a number. I'm trying to think of. I'll look for my for the mayor's report where I previously mentioned some. There's like 4 or 5 that are annual that Gulf Manor residents are available for. Any other questions? Thank you again, Ms. Cheney.
And there's 721 kids still at PRM. It's holding its own.
Any nonprofit information? Anything to report in the nonprofit realm? And I'm going to ask Mr. Donnellan then for the report.
Thank you. I mentioned earlier adding 2 pieces of legislation to the agenda. These both have to deal with the purchase of real estate on Weehee Road at 6516 Weehee Road. This has been a property which we have worked for several years to get it into compliance. It's had some salvage motor vehicles scattered about. There's problems interior. We actually went through the planning commission on an order for condemnation back in 2019. And then COVID hit and we set it aside. But we've got some grant money authorized by the county for us to acquire the property. So with that first, and we have to read these aloud because they were not made available prior to the meeting. As you could see, as the meeting began, I walked out and had these signed. So the first is resolution number 2022-11, a resolution authorizing a purchase and sale agreement with Shepherd Real Estate LLC and declaring an emergency. Shepherd Real Estate LLC, a limited liability company, is the owner of property located at 6516 Weehee Road, Gulf Manor, Ohio, being auditor's parcel number 528-0004-0394, defined as the real estate. Whereas the village does desire to acquire the real estate as a part of a community revitalization grant authorized by the Board of County Commissioners of Hamilton County, Ohio. And whereas the Community Revitalization Grant Review Committee has authorized the village to pay up to a total of $150,000 to acquire the fee simple interest to the real estate. And the village administrator has recommended the village enter into an agreement with Shepherd Real Estate LLC, contingent in part upon approval of a joint agreement with the Board of County Commissioners of Hamilton County, Ohio, under the Community Revitalization Grant Program. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the Village of Gulf Manor, Hamilton County, Ohio, that Section 1, the village administrator is authorized to execute a purchase and sale agreement with Shepherd Real Estate LLC in substantial form as the purchase and sale agreement attached hereto to acquire the real estate at 6516 Weehee Road, Gulf Manor, Ohio, auditor's parcel numbers 528-0004-0394 at a purchase price of $150,000 once the terms and conditions of the purchase and sale agreement have been satisfied. Section 2, the village administrator is authorized to execute such additional documentation as may be necessary to carry out the terms of the purchase and sale agreement to apply for and comply with the Community Revitalization Grant. Section 3, this resolution is determined to be an emergency measure necessary for the public health, safety, and welfare to eliminate a deteriorated and blighted property within the village and to acquire such property consistent with the terms and timeline for a community revitalization grant. As a result, this resolution shall take effect immediately upon passage. And I need a motion and then a second, and I can answer any questions, and then we can do a roll call vote.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion, any questions?
I have a question on the grant process. Are there any major conditions that we need to be aware of to utilize that money?
In working with the county, they simply want us to attest that we're using it for revitalization. economic development, and removing blighted properties. They're well aware of the property. We had a conversation even on Friday. They've authorized, which is the next piece of legislation, up to $250,000. So $150 to purchase the real estate, an additional $100 for demolition, remediation, and site preparation. We know there's some asbestos in the building because of its age. So the demolition may be a little more expensive because of the need to dispose of it correctly. In talking to Mr. Bean, he is going to deliver to me tomorrow an environmental assessment, which was done several years ago, which show there's no petrochemical contamination. We will still get an environmental analysis of the property. And we'll get a title exam on the property once we get the ball rolling with this. So our conditions for acquiring it are a clean title exam, to our discretion, a clean environmental report, and the county approval. So if we approve this tonight, we're going to send this to the county. They will present it to the county commissioners in March,
March, yes.
and then we'll have that approval. He asked, which was one of the changes we made to the contract, part of the condition was he cleans it out. All the property's gone. He said he needs 90 days. So I said, okay, 90 days from when the county approves it, clock starts, get it cleaned up. He said, well, what if we agree to extend it? I said, I'll put language in there, mutually agree to extend. But I'm telling you right now, there ain't no mutuality on this end. We've been dancing with this for 5 years, 6 years.
What's the remedy if he's not out in 90 days, doesn't have his property out in 90 days, and we're not mutually satisfied?
Well, there's 150,000 reasons for him to do that. Because we won't be closing.
Yeah, okay.
So he's not going to get the cash, and we can enforce the contract.
So he gets no payment until the property is clean.
Right, we don't close until it's clean.
Oh.
And clean is just get the debris out of there.
I've had property purchases where I've dealt with trying to get people to get all their stuff out. We've had to reschedule closing 3 times. And even on that 3rd time, it was like, you're going to pay us extra money to have us get the rest of the stuff out. So I'm concerned about that.
Well, as we go through the process, and we don't have to wait till closing to do this, to get someone to give us a bid on demolition, we might consider what they would do in
Contingency.
demolition.
Yeah.
Then maybe there's some things that they say, we'll just scrape that and throw it in the truck too. It's not a foundation property, it's slabs.
Oh, that's good.
So we'll be taking it down to the slab, removing the slab, and probably with the demolition contractor and the remediation monies we have, is seeding it for grass.
Any other questions? Are we ready for a roll call?
Mr. Batcher,
Yes.
Ms. Cheney,
Yes.
Mr. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Cannett,
Yes.
Ms. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Van Horn.
And that was a motion to approve it as an emergency, correct?
Yes.
So second piece of legislation related to it, Resolution 2022-13. A resolution authorizing a joint agreement with the Board of County Commissioners of Hamilton County, Ohio, and the Village of Gulf Manor, Ohio, to administer a community revitalization grant and declaring an emergency. Whereas the village has applied to the Community Revitalization Grant Review Committee for a community revitalization grant to eliminate blight and to demolish structures which have been determined by the village to be nuisance structures, which removal is necessary for public health, safety, and welfare, and to permit the redevelopment within the village. Whereas the village has been awarded a grant of up to $250,000 for the purpose of acquiring and demolishing a structure located at 6516 Weehee Road, Auditor's Parcel Number 528-0004-0394. Whereas the grant administrators have submitted the attached joint agreement to the village to be approved by the village council to authorize the village administrator to acquire such real estate and in accordance with the terms of the grant program to demolish the structure on site and to remediate and prepare such site for redevelopment. Now therefore be it resolved by the council of the Village of Gulf Manor, Hamilton County, Ohio, that Section 1. The village administrator is authorized to execute the attached joint agreement with the Board of County Commissioners of Hamilton County, Ohio, in the Village of Gulf Manor to administer a community revitalization grant for the purpose of acquiring property at 6516 Weehee Road and to proceed to demolish such structure on the property and to prepare the property for redevelopment. The village administrator is authorized to execute such joint agreement consistent with the form attached hereto. Section 2, the village administrator is authorized to take such additional steps as may be necessary to administer the program, including securing appropriate bids to demolish the property and to prepare and remediate the site for redevelopment. Section 3, the village administrator is authorized to execute such additional documentation as may be necessary to comply with the terms of the joint agreement and the community revitalization grant. Section 4, this resolution is determined to be an emergency measure necessary for the public health, safety, and welfare to eliminate a deteriorated and blighted property within the village and to acquire such property consistent with the terms and timeline for a community revitalization grant. As a result, this resolution shall take effect immediately upon passage. We need a motion to approve as an emergency, second, and a roll call vote.
Motion?
Second.
Any questions? Let's have a roll.
Mr. Fetcher,
Yes.
Ms. Cheney,
Yes.
Mr. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Knapp,
Yes.
Ms. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Van Horn.
Yes.
Just a couple other quick points, and then I'll go into some of the discussion to follow up your training on sunshine laws and public records. First of all, you heard the Planning Commission is going to study some of those changes, and thank you for the motion. Records Commission, Mr. Hirth mentioned, we met tonight, we approved an RC2, which is a record retention destruction schedule. The one modification we've already made is to incorporate the police department's policies relative to video cameras. It's important to have a destruction schedule so that we can dispose of records. We have a basement sitting below us full of records, and we want to start destroying those. So we'll be adopting that, we'll be sending it to the state. We're going to meet again in 60 days, I believe.
Correct.
To update some of the sections. But we started with the model. Tonight, the meeting consisted of Ron, Andy, me as the statutory officers. We can appoint a citizen. Ron will be appointing a citizen to the committee. That's what the statute says. And then we have Paula and Denise, who are designated records trainees, to also attend the meeting tonight. So for our next meeting, Mr. Hirth will appoint a citizen to serve on the committee with us. And then we will start our regular meeting schedule every 6 months, even if it's only 5 minutes, to conform to what the statute requires. Questions on that?
Historical records, are they destroyed, like old minutes and stuff?
And that's the 38-page records retention destruction schedule we're happy to share with you.
Okay,
But minutes are things that have to be kept permanently.
okay, oh, good,
Yes,
because it is historical.
yes. Just a bit of news update. Last week, the Ohio House approved House Bill 551, I think it is, or 51, which authorizes us to return to virtual meetings till the end of June.
Oh,
Authorizes or requires?
Authorizes.
That's out.
It's optional. Why they did that when at the same time they're going the opposite direction, and everything else, no one in the room
Yeah.
understood.
Got started before.
yeah.
Right. But the Senate approved it, then it went to the House, and then the House approved it again. It's sitting on the governor's desk. He should be back from LA now. It was anticipated he was going to sign it, so it takes effect immediately.
It's temporary?
It's till June 30.
Okay.
The problem again becomes that when you all want to attend remotely, we have to facilitate the public to also attend remotely and to participate remotely. So it's not just easy. It's Zoom. We did that before, you remember. It's video conferencing. It's telephone conferencing. So before we jump into it and say, yeah, we don't have to do this anymore, we need to think through, are we there with the technology to do it? I think the purpose behind it is if we get another surge for people to be safe. But we saw during the course of doing that, in our community, many other communities, people jump on and then hijack meetings. in Zoom meetings, people use the function of sending a script across the screen, whereas if they're sitting here, they're not going to disrupt the meeting. So before we say, yay, we don't have to come back in here for 6 months, let's think about what makes sense.
May
But it
I
is
weigh
there.
in on that?
I'd like to as well. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think the challenges that we have require the ability for all of us as a group to work together really, really well. And although the meetings virtually allowed us to conduct business, I think there was a lot of flavor that was lost by us not meeting in person and being able to look at each other and to communicate. I'm not a fan of this simply because I think we got a lot to do. And I think we lost a lot of ground for that, year and a half we met virtually.
Yeah.
Plus, if we're just doing this till June, I think we've been responsive to keeping people safe here and also have been able to do that. No one has gotten COVID from being here in this building. Yeah, that's what I think.
So
Maybe we have to go door to door to deliver chocolates.
exactly,
We
so
all
many
wanna vote.
complications. So at a mayor's association meeting, one of the things that they were bringing up is that under home rule, of course, we can do a charter amendment that gives us the power to decide when we can do this, set up rules around that. So we don't need to be contingent on the state, which often will lag behind an emergency, right? In terms of being able to, or for instance, with this most recent piece, being able to install it. I agree with what Mr. Herth said and what Mr. Donnellan said. I think that that maybe we put together a committee, or we ask executive to put together one of these committees on the side to work on figuring out what best practices are to be able to do remote better than what we've done in the past, whether it be locking up the text piece so that we can't have someone hijacking the text piece during a meeting that we have going on, whether we have the controls to be able to have someone be able to speak for 3 minutes, but then it shuts down unless we prove them to be able to speak longer. Because if we do, if this is just if COVID-19 was a training for things to come in which we could start building the infrastructure that we have now for storing tons of vaccine and everything locally. If all this was a practice run for more issues in the future, we need to be able to do what we did even better, right? Because we do lose flavor with it. We did lose a lot of time doing that stuff. So I think that it should probably be a priority that we figure out, or at least continue to have it, a working group on it, figuring out how we would do it in the future
Seem to
in a
me
better way.
might be a two-step thing if we're gonna do that, is have a policy on when would we wanna have to do it. Like if 2 people are test positive or 3, we have to say, well, then we have to go to they can still participate. That would trigger us to do it, not necessarily where it's gonna have a general vote to do it,
I'm thinking there is a best practice where you look at lessons learned, all right? So what I'm thinking of first stage would be simply getting all the council members' feedback, maybe some members from the community as well, feedback about what sucked about how we did it, all right? What seemed to work good about how we did it, all right? I'm not suggesting that we're taking up any official council time until some of that information has been collected. But I think it is important that we do look at lessons learned from it, so that we do have a direction should we have to do this again in the future. And to have some consideration, be thinking about in your own mind whether a charter amendment would be something down the road that we might want to do. There's definitely pros and cons to that. I suspect that Mr. Donnellan could speak to, but that's all. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to speak to that. I agree that preparation is good. I question would be, what are our priorities and do we want to spend the human resource? Because we're kind of limited on, committees and subcommittee bodies to work on it.
Yeah,
So-
to clarify that, I was bringing up the model that Mr. Van Harn brought up, that, we're looking at not taking up, yeah.
No, I get that. I'm just saying, we probably want to weigh that because we get a lot on our plate this year. And this might be something that technology itself spends its resources to correct, as well as other communities and their best practices. Instead of us kind of working to reinvent the wheel, this might be something that occurs over time that we can just tap into later. So we probably want to weigh those priorities a little bit.
Exactly, and I'll keep the council informed with these mayors association meetings where they're talking about these things.
Yeah,
Because,
we'll let them do it. And then we'll
communities, right,
I just a thought, I think it's a good idea to be prepared.
currently the current directive is mayors in your communities look at this. So, all right, anything else?
If we all hear one person is absent, could he zoom in just for that, or that's not part of it? It's either one?
Only if we were to, because of home rule, we can write the rules. All right, that's what I'm told, within certain bounds.
This only applies till June 30th. We would not have enough time under home rule to make an adjustment.
No, yes.
June 30th.
To be
What it
clear,
does, if we wanted to allow council members to attend remotely, yes. But when we have that council member interacting with us remotely, we owe a duty to the general public to allow them to also interact remotely. So if we're gonna allow a council member to Zoom in, we gotta open up that Zoom to the entire community to be fair. So if we're gonna allow someone remotely to count for attendance, to participate in discussion and vote, we owe the duty to the public to say, you can also.
So we have that technology. It's nothing new. We would have to, can we do a hybrid meeting?
Mhm.
So that's out there. The one thing that I would caution on is if we consider a charter amendment, that has to go on the ballot and be approved by the voters.
yeah, and I'm not talking about trying to rush anything through right now, which we'd have to do if we're trying to put it on the ballot coming up soon. I'm bringing it up as people think about this, not just because, maybe it's something that gets passed 2 years from now. Who knows how, I'm not putting a timeline on this. I'm saying consider it. And I didn't mean to open it up to be a long discussion this evening, but just saying that in terms of how we do our council meetings and what we're allowed to do as far as Zoom meetings and everything, currently we take our direction from the state on that. And what they're saying at the Mayor's Association meetings is, guys, you don't have to, that this whole thing has brought it to everyone's attention that we may want to develop hybrid ways of doing this where we are including the whole community as an option, all right, via Zoom or whatever technology that is what we're using. But it's going to be a long process if we want to come up with our own rules of doing that. So start thinking about it if it's something that you're interested in.
And
that's the message.
The only caution I would give there under that home rule issue is you can enact laws and supersede the state unless it's a law of general applicability and the state supersedes. As an example, we couldn't decide that marijuana is legal in the village of Gulf Manor. You can buy it, sell it, and grow it. Because they said, well, that's general law. 12122, the Public Meetings Act, could become a challenge where someone says, no, that's a general law and you cannot supersede it. You cannot supersede it. To that point, there was challenges a number of years ago on executive sessions. And one of the communities said, well, we decide our own on executive sessions. The court said, oh, no, you don't. You've got to hold executive sessions consistent with state statute. So that is a thought that's percolating in the Mayor's Association, but it may not be something that would not go without challenge.
I would certainly defer to our legal counsel. That's what he's here for. The legal counsel of the Mayor's Association simply said, start looking at this.
Yeah. And again, it's Mayor's Association is part of the Ohio Municipal League where I'm on the board. So we have these discussions. We have these discussions as to what communities can do, because the whole mantra of the Municipal League is what's best for local communities.
Right. And at the very beginning of this, when the state of emergency, 2 years ago, was first declared at the state level, And we were looking at, trying to figure out even, well, does the mayor then make a state of emergency as well? And we were learning all this kind of stuff as we were going along. One of the things that we were charged with was looking at how would we do hybrid kind of meetings. And I had drafted out something on that. And I think if you talk to your constituents, particularly the younger ones, there's a lot of questions about why it isn't interactive right now. Why do people have to come down here? There's questions about that. You may have answers for that, but let's start having those discussions.
On that point, there was some requests that I discussed, public meetings and sunshine law. Are you up for a few minutes of that tonight, or you want to push it off to the next meeting? I know you all just completed some training, and I know that generated questions from training, some of which may not be applicable to us because we're a committee of 6,
Right.
not a committee of 3.
I would prefer to push it off.
I'll tell you, I've given this PowerPoint
You're
presentation.
an overachiever, Terry.
No, I've given this PowerPoint presentation for 15 years to boards and commissions on public records, public meetings. Usually it's about a 45-minute session. I can become Cliff Junior Notes and put this down to about 15. I know one of the questions you had asked me coming out of your training, I don't necessarily agree with the speaker, but I think the speaker's perspective was townships,
Right.
where there's 3.
Mhm.
There's 3.
That was a confusing thing for us to keep
Mhm.
filtering.
I don't want to shorten his time.
So,
And I'm okay with pushing it off too, if there's no objection from the administration as far as what's on our agenda for, it's end of month, so we've got more reports and stuff that come at end of month. Is there any objection to pushing
No, I
it?
think that's fine. I think though, what would be helpful, there was a discussion after the finance meeting that we talked about doing some kind of a training module with the administration here for how financial things apply to the village of Gulf Manor specifically. If you have an interest in doing that, somebody needs to lead that out of council to work with us so we can schedule a date. I think that'd be the most effective way to do that. And I don't know, staff relations, the other topic was economic development. I don't know that we should do that with economic development because I think we're in the middle of that. What I heard the county saying was they know we're doing
Yeah.
economic development. They know who they are, they know our resources. So I think that kind of says we're doing the right thing. So I'll leave that up to you. Does somebody
What
want
was the
to
financial
champion?
piece?
I'm sorry.
What was the financial piece specifically that?
The financial stuff covered mostly township
Township.
finances.
There were 2 township trainers.
Right, okay,
And they didn't know much about cities or villages. She admitted it.
that's right.
So
Yeah, so it was
I've talked to
confusing
Ms.
To the new
Snyder.
people sitting in.
Yeah, I know my question, I asked it in the meeting was, it seemed like I'd like to have just a thimble view of the best practices for municipalities like ours. Like, we talk about the reserve being this much.
And we do it.
Exactly, I mean, but there's gotta be maybe a half dozen of those, just rules of thumb. Is it really, to me,
How much should the prudent reserve be? For
you know,
instance,
or
what's
things
the
like that.
formula?
That was
for
just
that?
use that as an example, just for, anyway. I know municipalities are gonna be different, because they're different makeups, but.
So is that something that the finance committee wants to lead in terms of scheduling something like that?
What would that involve?
I don't know. We can talk about
We'll
it.
put it on the agenda for the next finance committee meeting.
Okay.
That would be okay.
So I did talk to Ms. Snyder about, earlier in the week, about some of the things that I think we would like to put out there for the residents, which would be an explanation of where revenues come from. As one module, a second module might be where the taxes actually go once we receive them. There had been some of that work that was done for that town hall meeting back in 2017 for the fire merger. So a lot of that just needs to be re-updated or updated. But, okay.
And to that point, the municipal league has engaged a professor at Ohio State University who's doing a white paper due by Labor Day on what happens with this whole shift now in municipal income tax with remote
I
working.
think that was part of the discussion too.
What could be the economic impact, good and bad? Not making a recommendation, that was one of his conditions. He will not make a recommendation. The Buckeye Institute, which is a competing group, made a recommendation to do away with municipal income tax across the board and instead impose a property tax across the board for everybody in Ohio. That did not meet with a lot of applause.
Nope.
So come the end of this year, this might be a very good discussion relative to what impact it's to have. Most of our residents do not work at Gulf Manor.
So Terry, when's a decision going to be made about what's going to happen?
They're asking the legislature to sit still. There's a lot of clamoring to let's wipe out the cities. And they're asking the legislature to please sit still. The task was get this white paper to us by Labor Day, because this being an election year and a lame duck session at the end of this year, there tends to be what they call the Christmas tree. Let's hang it on all these bills. And they're afraid they're going to start hanging some of these income tax issues on the bills.
Is it partly influenced by the work from home issue now?
It's work from home is
That's what
huge
it's doing.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
because it was driven by the taxpayer who said, well, wait a minute, I'm a broker with Merrill Lynch, an office in downtown Cincinnati. I've been working from my home in Sycamore Township. I'm not paying you the tax. And the city of Cincinnati went, whoa, 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 we need your money.
But it also pits
They need everybody.
villages versus big cities as well.
Right, exactly.
The biggest townships, because the
Right.
townships like, we don't impose income
They don't want
tax.
income tax level.
So that's a huge issue on the radar up in Columbus. So we'll know more about that as we get toward the end of the year as to what impact that could have upon us economically.
Terry, there's a side note. I was curious if you have any insight. It's not related directly, but there's legislation in the State House that would increase the village's contribution for police and fire retirement
Right.
quite substantially. Do you have any
We discussed
insight in
that,
that?
and apparently because according to their analysis economically, the state's flush with cash and we're all flush with cash. And so they want to put the burden on us now to relieve some of the burden on the state. Because I think they're talking about pushing this village contribution to 26.2%.
It's 8% now, isn't it?
No, not for police and fire. I believe it's
Oh.
19 and a half.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of these little bills out there, but the municipal league keeps fighting and fighting and fighting them. And part of the discussion Friday was with the lieutenant governor on, you got to give us some breaks. You can't keep attacking local governments. And you can't keep going to the electorate and saying, look how we cut your taxes. And what you did was cut our taxes.
Right.
So they're very vigilant about that. But I'll save the rest of this presentation, riveting that it is, for a next meeting.
I mean, it's important stuff. Important stuff. Another item that Mr. Donnell and I have discussed in the past, and Mr. Hurth, the administration, and I have spoken about before as well. There have been some questions from council members, particularly coming in new, about how does a bill become a law, right? We don't have a cartoon on Sunday morning anymore, and we probably need one for our council members, just for many of us, just kind of a reminder of the different ways in our municipality how resolutions come to be. You know, oftentimes our experience when we're new is just, here's one, all right?
Resolutions or ordinances?
Ordinances and resolutions. Here you go. Here it is. Would you like to discuss it? How did that even come to be, right? And so the proposal was made, Mr. Donnellan or someone of his staff could come and give us an overview. And I think the recommendation was made by Ms. Cheney that it be you, Mr. Donnellan, since you're familiar most probably of anyone at your organization with Gulf Manor, to give an overview of the many ways in which a bill becomes a law here in Gulf Manor. So be thinking about dates that might work for us, because I think we are interested in that.
And I'll tell you that the book that Mr. Hurth passed out, Now What, is really a tremendous book.
It is.
And part of my talk is going to be how that book relates to discussions among yourselves and how it relates to the Sunshine Law. So,
Oh, that was the one question that we probably need to resolve tonight. Are we wrong in picking up the telephone and calling all of our council members individually and lobbying?
no.
Okay, we can continue
If the
that.
strict reading of the public meetings law is two of you cannot get together and talk about anything, then I don't know how the hell they co-sponsor a bill in Columbus.
Okay,
That's not what the, as far as I understood was that you could go ahead and tell people and discuss. You can't say that, oh, I already spoke to this and this and this person and they said yes on this and they're gonna vote yes, so hope you're gonna join me. That you can't do. You could just discuss it with the person. You can't go ahead and lobby and say, already this and this person is already thinking this way, so you should also change it.
Well, the
She
key
said
to
no.
all that is deliberations are to be
yeah, she
public.
said no deliberation.
Deliberations are to be public, so when you talk to each other and say, I think this is what we ought to do, it's imperative that you come in here and say,
Oh.
here's what we talked about, here's why we're gonna do this. There's actually cases where it's like a third base coach in baseball, where they all sit around and go, signaling each other how the vote's gonna be, because they've discussed it outside the meeting. So I'll tell you this, anything I've seen you do, you've not done anything wrong.
Okay.
I'll tell you
I'm a little
otherwise.
confused between the definition of deliberation and discussion.
Same thing. Deliberations are how do you get to the decision-making process that you're doing? So deliberating.
If I call Sharon, say, hey, I'm thinking we should have this rule on the playground. And here's what I think. I've talked to Ashley and there's some of those thoughts there that were discussed. That would be wrong because I brought up
No.
Ashley's name?
No,
Or just, okay. So
because
what
you
point
would
is
come
it-
to the floor with it and say, I want to make a motion that we consider redoing the playground equipment. I've talked to some of my fellow council members, and this is how I came to my conclusion.
And what's the round robin rule?
The round robin rules, the onesies and twosies rules to get away from executive sessions, where the village administrator would say, I need to talk to just two of you. And then they're going, yeah, you can do that. And then they're coming away as that's a decision. That's the onesie and twosie rule. It's the city of Cincinnati rule from years ago. You can't do that. You can't bypass executive session and come to a conclusion by one and two people talking and voting. That a lot of times would apply to dismissing an employee. We don't discuss dismissing an employee out in public, but you couldn't go and say, I've talked to everybody and we're all in favor of firing this person. And now you're fired. But I want to have you hanging in suspense till the next meeting.
So Terry, isn't it true though that if I talk to two council members for the speed, so I don't have to keep repeating everything 6 times, I say it 3 times. As long as there is no decision being made
Correct.
and I'm just informing of what your options are,
Correct.
there's no violation.
Correct. It's a prearranged discussion of the business of the public entity by a majority of the members. Being prearranged.
It's basically temporary subcommittees. We're going to have a subcommittee working on something outside, but we're going to bring it to the public. Maybe explain what we did and everything. Be a committee, but these are very temporary.
It's it.
Yeah, it's
If the
the same thing.
rule,
It really is. I see.
if the rule is you can never discuss with another person, you could never have legislators going around the state house saying, I'm thinking about putting a bill up there, would you be a sponsor? Yeah, I would.
There's a couple announcements here. Next council meeting will be February 28th. Financial Audit Committee, 5:30. Finance Committee, 6 p.m. Council, 7 p.m. And then, of course, we have meetings in March, 7th. Finance Committee at, whoops.
Actually, it's executive.
Executive Committee at
Sorry.
6 PM and Council at 7 PM. Is, if there's no other announcements,
Happy 75th anniversary to golf.
happy 75th anniversary to Golf Manor. I'm aware of a number of events that are being planned to coincide with that. Thank you, Mr. Van Horn.
Is it candy is the appropriate gift?
You may use that candy however suits your desire.
Motion to adjourn?
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you for your service, everyone.
Thanks for the candy.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you.
you.
Yeah, thank you.